Hi, this is Dr. Parikh, and this video is for Counseling Psychology for PS313. And here I'm going to go over the basics of Blackboard, the syllabus, and our schedule. I'll try to put some timestamps down below, but if I don't get around to it, sorry. So announcements, this is where new announcements will come. Sometimes I find it easier, I'll just create an email list and send things out, but I'm also recognizing that sometimes it's nice to have announcements because then there's a record. You can go back and see everything instead of looking through your email. So I'll try to balance based on how time sensitive it is. Your grades can be found here. I might switch the order of some things. It's a little disorganized right now. It's a good reminder. There might be lots of small changes, but when you're looking at this, especially if you're looking at it mid-semester or a different semester, I'm making this in January of 2022. But the basics should be the same. If they change that drastically, I will change them. I'll update the video. So this is the syllabus for, again, PS313-001 in spring 2022. Our meeting day and time, my contact information. This phone number forwards to my cell phone. So you can leave messages. I think it skips the answering machine on the work phone and just goes straight to my mobile. Here's my office, but for now, all office, again, spring 2022, I'm starting out with all office hours being virtual. If you super duper want to meet with me in person, we can look into finding a larger room. My office is just a bit small for meeting right now. And you can schedule appointments. And I'll peek here. Sorry, I am so sorry. It's going to make me do the two-factor authentication. I don't have my phone with me. I am really sorry. Normally I would redo my video if something like this happened, but I'm so annoyed at two-factor authentication that I'm just going to unfortunately let you suffer through it because I think it's excessive. I have already authenticated like twice this semester, and of course I can't find my phone anywhere. I am wandering through my house while recording this video, and I am so bitter about two-factor. I'm not even taking it out. I apologize. You can skip through until you see the screen change. I left it in my laundry area, so that's fun. Okay, I have my phone. I can do two-factor authentication now. I can approve. Again, normally I would feel unprofessional for doing that, but so what you'll see is you will see little meeting times for the office hours. Where is it's going to be? I'm going to create a Google Meet link. And your name will go here. You can check to see what account you're logged in with. So mine is logged in with a Caldwell account. If you accidentally make it with a personal account, what I'll usually do, if I notice it, I will add on your Caldwell account as well when I create the link. They're usually for about 20 minutes, but sometimes during busier times, I'll make it shorter. Other times, I'll make it a little bit longer. A really big benefit to making an appointment is that if something goes wrong, like I've had times, you know, I have personal emergencies, especially I have a small child, so it could be just he's sick and needs to be picked up. I've also had times where I've been, I had to go to the ER and so I'm in the ER, on my phone messaging people saying, I'm not going to be able to meet today. Whereas otherwise, the person would have come in. This was before. I don't even know what's happening with this now. Let me try refreshing. Okay, now I'm signed in. I see. But anyway, if there's an emergency and you have an appointment, I can let you know. And then also I will know that I need to reschedule you. And if I cancel, especially if it's last minute, I'll try really hard to open my schedule as much as possible. If my office hours don't work for you, and check them because sometimes they'll change just for that week. Let's say I have a doctor's appointment or somebody really needs an urgent meeting. I might change them. I also might, sometimes I'll have some extra openings for something. Just always check to see if it's limited to certain people. And then the other, sometimes they're just full, but you can always email me to see if I have more. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. If these office hours just systematically don't work for you, let me know, ideally a few days before you need to meet with me, so last minute isn't super helpful. Again, if my meeting times are just all, there are some weeks of the semester that I just fill up, but most weeks I can, I can make an appointment with you and kind of balance things out. If I find that systematically, lots and lots of, occasionally I have office hours that just lots of students can't meet during those times. So I usually try to schedule it when there's at least, when there's no classes running, at least some of them. But either way, if you really need to meet, or if I notice that consistently people can't meet, I might change them for the semester. Course description. This is a pretty broad overview of counseling theories, counseling relationship. One thing this class is not is a diagnostic or psychological disorders class. We're really focusing more on theories of how theories of personality are applied in a counseling setting. So thinking about not just how the person developed the way they developed, but how we can act to change that personality or patterns. And also about the counseling relationship itself. Ideally in this class, we do some skills practice. We have, you do some role playing with each other, but that's a little tricky right now with pandemic issues. So we're going to do different things instead this time. But in the future, there might be other things. There is one book that's required. I usually don't require books, like paid resources if I can help it, but this one is really, really good. And I've asked students before if they would prefer to pay for a really good book or pay less for a not as good book. This one, the 8th edition is what's listed here. I don't know how much has really changed between the 7th and 8th edition. Most of these counseling theories are not exactly cutting edge. This is more sort of historical what's been used. Let's see. And then there's also some things through Blackboard. And I usually keep the first chapter or two. I'm going to pop over to Blackboard for a moment. Usually here in the shared drive, you can find 1 or 2 chapters, and it's not meant to be a replacement for purchasing the book. It's meant to give you a little time if you need to wait to get money to purchase or to work out a sharing agreement with someone in class, or if you just need time, if you have ordered the book but need a little time to get it in. It also should be available through Caldwell's bookstore. Learning objectives, so we're talking about history of talk therapy and counseling, and we do focus a lot on history, but we also try to talk about what's happening today. Before you would actually work as a counselor, you would go to some sort of graduate program, and that program would give you a lot more up-to-date information. So major theoretical approaches, so walking out of this class, you should be able to discuss most of the major approaches. Again, especially thinking over the past 50 to 70 years or more. We're also going to do a lot of application. And again, because the skills practice is a little tricky, at least for this semester, we're going to do a lot of application looking at movies. In particular, the currently new Disney Encanto portrays quite a few family dynamics and potentially mental health issues. And a lot of things that people could come to counseling for. It talks a lot about how and why people change, how and why people get stuck in certain roles and ways of being. So we will do that with Encanto. You'll also have a project where one of your major papers will be choosing a character from a different movie, book, TV show, something like that. And again, we're not necessarily diagnosing. We're not necessarily looking for people with clinical diagnosable issues, just people who might be coming to counseling with what we call problems of living. So they may have diagnosable disorders, or it may just be, some general anxiety or some difficulty with adjustment. You're also going to talk about how different theoretical approaches have different treatment approaches associated with them. So, as a mental health professional, you would choose a theoretical approach, maybe a couple that you kind of balance, and your treatment should flow out of those theoretical approaches. Basic helping skills, again, I'm not sure how much we'll get to do with this just based on environmental constraints right now, but this is ideally part of what we would do. And we will at least talk about these helping skills. And we might do a little bit of role play in class, depending on how things go. We'll talk a little bit about individual versus family and group counseling. And we'll also talk about special types of counseling. We'll talk a little bit about career. We also might talk about things like trauma and abuse. So we will have at least a few special issues that we talk about during the semester. We will also talk a little bit about your own career opportunities. Not all of you are going to be interested in going on to be a clinician, but we'll talk a little bit about what the options are. So learning goals for the psychology department. For this class, I think we stay fairly heavily in Goal 1, identifying major concepts, theoretical perspectives, empirical findings, and historical trends in psychology. And here I think, kind of just off the cuff to me, counseling psychology in particular sort of bridges developmental, because again, we're a lot of problems of living. So typical difficulties at different point. We'll talk, for example, for Encanto, we'll talk about how the family life cycle, why now? Why does this breakdown happen now? And part of it is, as children are being launched for the next generation. Personality, of course, thinking about who we are, how we become who we are, and how to change that. And also social, thinking about how we're influenced by the world around us. And we will certainly be talking about many of these different perspectives. These aren't all counseling perspectives necessarily, but many of them are closely tied. We will also certainly be doing basic research methods, because you will be writing a paper as part of any 300 level psychology class. You write a peer-reviewed or a paper using peer-reviewed articles. And we also will certainly do a lot of critical thinking skills. I like to have my classes run fairly free-form, so you'll see you have readings, you have videos, and then in class we kind of will go with the flow. I might lead a little bit more, especially any days that we're in a remote format, but as much as possible I like to have lots of student participation and to kind of go from there. We will also question a lot of things. And we'll talk a lot about exceptions. Diversity statement. We are a diverse group. I just note we are going to be a diverse group. And some of that diversity is going to be visible. Some of it is not, for various reasons. And be aware that the people around you are likely different from you. In this class, I also raise significant awareness that we will talk about difficult things. And when you talk about those things, assume that at least one person in the room, and statistically this will be true, statistically several people in the room will have had thoughts of suicide or self-harm. One or two people, maybe three or more, will have had very serious thoughts, have made a plan for how to kill themselves perhaps, and statistically at least one of us in the room will have had an attempted suicide. And similarly, assume that someone in the room has someone they love who experiences any kind of mental health or developmental issue we might talk about. So things that are theoretical for you are probably very personal for at least one person in the room. I'll also acknowledge that we live on land that has not always belonged to people of the United States. Attendance. Actually, I need to update this a little bit. I have some of my updated policy in here. So I'm going to, hopefully by the time you see this, I will have updated this a little bit, because I will happily excuse anything. If you don't feel safe coming to class, I will excuse your absence. Again, assume that at least one other person in class either is high risk or has a close contact with a loved one who is high risk. I personally, as of this recording, have a child who is too young to be vaccinated, and I have already spent 53 days in the hospital with him during his life, and I would really like that to be it for a while. So I take precautions very seriously. I do everything I can, which includes masking and keeping distance from other people. We will run the best class we can with what we have. I will, as of now, Caldwell's mask policy has been extended. It may not be extended throughout the semester, but I will request that you continue to wear masks. And I try to keep some extra sanitizer, wipes, and disposable masks with me. So if you have an issue where your mask gets dirty, it gets lost, it gets damaged, I usually will have one or two extras with me. It's really tough to do a high-quality hybrid class, but let me know and I'll see, as soon as you know that you can't come. Now, sometimes you're so ill that you can't even log in. You just need to rest, and that's completely fine. Or you are caregiving for someone who is ill or quarantined and you cannot attend, and that's fine. But if you would be able to pay attention and participate, you just can't be there physically, let me know and I will tell you if I'm able to do something. I will still track attendance. This is partly just so that I know if something's, I know when people are disappearing. It also lets me know if they're kind of I just keep a record. The university asks me to keep a record as well, so I'm always going to take attendance. But with the pandemic, honestly, I'm not as concerned about excusing absences as I used to be. Participation. This is a highly interactive class typically. Again, I know that there are some shifts, but I think even with the pandemic, this can still be a very active class. If we do a meet, do your best to be in a quiet, well-lit place with a calm background, and if you can't do that, that's fine. If there's kids and pets and all sorts of things in the background, that's fine. Headphones makes a big difference, but it's up to you. There will be some days that we will be watching Encanto. I'm going to check to see if I can just stream it so that we can all be remote for those days. And on those days, I will do my best to keep things kid-friendly in case you're in a place with kids who want to watch Encanto with you. There will be times that we'll stop and talk about things. I will give a very clear warning if some of the things might be because there are hints at at a lot of trauma in the movie. They don't portray it very directly, but there are certainly hints, and we will talk about it more. But I will try to give clear warning before that happens. Let's see, Blackboard. I use Blackboard quite a bit. Assignments are turned in through Blackboard. For it to be considered on time, you've got to use files that Blackboard likes, which are Word.doc files or PDF files. You need them to end in .doc or .docx or .pdf. If they don't end in those formats, Blackboard can't read them. Class format. Let's see. I actually might need to update some of this, I'm realizing. Some of this is still pretty clear, though. So you're going to do readings and watch demonstrations or short lectures before coming to class. And then in class, we're going to talk about the fun stuff. We might pull up those videos and watch parts of them and analyze them together. We might talk about talk about other related things. Again, mass policy, I carry extra things with me. I just ask you to take it seriously. And if I don't feel safe in class, I'm going to end class. Office hours, I do my best. There are certainly possibilities that I may need to change them also because I may be caring for my small child. Because child care is just not as reliable as it used to be. And also, if there's not a lot of alternatives, before there were several things I could do, but if my child is quarantined, I can't, there's not a lot of people I can call to come be with my child, or not a lot of people I feel ethical calling. And yeah, if you need extra times, let me know. Please show up if you ask for a special time. Sometimes under special circumstances, I can do evening hours. And again, if I'm home with my kid, those evening hours might end up working better for me. So it all just depends. I understand that all of you are working with a lot of constraints as well. And so we'll just do our best to be kind to each other. Counseling resources. The university does have a counseling center that is free for students. If you think you might be interested in seeing what counseling is like, the earlier you contact them, the easier it is to get in, because just like with tutoring services, with counseling, early in the semester, there's a much shorter wait for it. And then as the semester goes on and everybody gets more and more stressed out, they still do certainly offer services, but it can take a little longer to get in. And I will say this is a class that certainly can trigger symptoms. So if you've ever had mental health concerns in the past, anticipate that this class will probably bring them back up, even if they had been under control. Part of this is because we're going to be talking about things in a different way. Even if you've been through years of counseling, you might be peeking behind the curtain in a way that you haven't before. Also, this can be tricky because let me see. I'm sorry. I'm just noticing that I can probably zoom a little more effectively. But also here, you are by definition older than the previous time you have been in therapy or otherwise dealt with mental health issues. And as we age, as we enter different developmental stages, our perspective on things can shift. So especially if this was something that may have happened when you were a child or an adolescent, and you're now entering in more of an adulthood stage, you may see those things very differently. And there's also a growth perspective. Even if you are generally a pretty strong and resilient person, you may want to explore a little bit, and a few sessions of counseling can help. I'm always happy to talk with people about counseling options. You can also contact the wellness center or the counseling center within the wellness center. There's also a lot of online resources that you can reach out to. I think I need to update this with, there's also if you experience crisis, if you are just feeling overwhelmed, hopeless, and especially if you're having any thoughts of self-harm or suicide, there are people who want to talk to you, who want to support you. You can contact campus safety and security or police for just, kind of safety options. There's also the New Jersey Hope Line. You can search for many other options, including, and I'll try to put it in here, there are chat and text options as well. Closings, if the university is closed or goes remote, I'll try to reach out as quickly as I can. I highly recommend getting signed up for the texts and the phone calls. It is very helpful. Email, I try to be pretty responsive, but I also try to set aside time for me to work on bigger projects. If I'm always answering email, then I get, if I always address the interruptions, then it's hard to make progress on the bigger projects, like making a video like this. So during business days or during the week, expect to get it within 2 days. If you don't get it within that, assume that something went wrong and send a polite follow-up saying, dear Dr. Parikh, I haven't seen a response from you for this email. Could you follow up? Sincerely, your name. Make sure that you always include your name. Usually it shows up in your email, but not always. Weekends and evenings, I typically do not answer email. If I do, it's going to be email that I can answer from my phone, which means you've given me all the information I need. You've included screenshots of things if needed. You have attempted to explain the problem or let's say you're asking for clarification on an assignment. Instead of saying, how do I do this assignment? You might say, okay, I used this video and here is the description from Blackboard. I'm struggling with this specific part. I think I'm supposed to do X, Y, and Z. Can you tell me if I'm right? That is the easiest email for me to respond to, which means I will respond quickly and thoroughly. When you just send me an email saying, I'm confused on X assignment, it's really tough for me. I've created a description as thorough as I can. Sometimes I have made videos, especially anything with the APA style paper. You can access all of my writing and psych videos where I explain every step of doing a paper like this. So it gets real tough for me when you just say, I'm lost. It's much easier when you tell me your understanding of the assignment and what you're confused about. If you're asking me when something's due, I'm going to say, I don't know, check the schedule, because that's generally the truth. I have a lot of courses as well, and I would have to look it up as well. Grading. Quizzes are not accepted late. You do them outside of class, and I typically give like a week, 5 days, something like that to do them within, and after that time I don't take them. All other work is, the first day is just 5% off. After that, it's 10% per day. And that's to give some flexibility, but also say, like, look, I really want to be able to sit down and grade this as a batch of material, and I can't do that if I don't have everyone's work. Also, I don't want somebody to get too far into the semester and then suddenly realize that they are way, way, way behind and they're too far behind to catch up. So I want to help motivate you to stay with the course, but still having some flexibility. If you're ever having tech issues, certainly email me a file to show me that you had it done on time, but still upload it to Blackboard. I just don't give credit for things through email. For one, Blackboard sometimes doesn't let me use the rubric if there's not a submission. It doesn't go into the plagiarism checks the same way. And also, it's just really hard for me. I've got lots and lots and lots of students, lots and lots and lots of assignments, and I just can't manage taking things through email. It has to all come through Blackboard. But again, feel free to email me just proof that my assignment is done, because I know Blackboard genuinely can be really difficult to work with at times. So overall, most of your points for the class come from 2 papers and all the assignments that go with them. And then there's also quizzes. So the first paper is a little more casual. It's the character analysis selection. And final paper, there's 2. Let me write this a little differently to be more clear. I will actually come over to Blackboard to show you where these things are. So assignments, you've got character analysis paper, and you've got, first up is just choosing a character. So you're going to choose someone who, a character from a book, movie, book, or TV show. I'll warn you, TV shows, especially ones that run for like 8 to 10 seasons, there is so much character development in the main characters usually. I recommend picking a season to pick a specific point in time to focus on, rather than trying to track, Meredith Grey across a decade. So just to keep it same, with a book, if there's a long-running book series like Outlander, again, I would probably focus on a specific point in time. And, certainly you can use history of things that came before that, but I wouldn't try to, just try to imagine that this person came in at this moment and what would they be like, what would they focus on. So first, just give me 2 to 3 sentences of why you think this person might come for counseling. Again, they don't need to have a diagnosis or they don't need to be in crisis. It could be a family difficulty or a transition, a death loss, a divorce, or a career issue. I'm frustrated in my career, or I lost my job. So usually you want to look for people who are acting realistically toward each other. So like horror films where people are, I'm going to use phrases I don't usually use because they're stigmatizing. If somebody's, going nuts, that's probably not a great example. So some psychological thrillers are fine. I'm fine if there's like magic and fantasy. I mean, we're watching Encanto, like there's fantasy. But you want it to be something where people relate to each other in ways that feel fairly realistic. And it's okay to critique some things to say like, okay, this part didn't feel realistic, and we'll certainly do that when we talk about, for example, when we talk about Bruno. No. You don't have to pick the main character within a story. In fact, sometimes it's more interesting to choose a supporting character, but just make sure you have enough material to work with. I'm fine with you pulling in fanfic or fan theories, and we'll talk about how to cite that kind of material. And this is genuinely for me to check over. I don't have to be familiar with it, but that's why I asked for a link. I don't watch a lot of things. I don't watch a lot of TV or movies. I have fairly limited reading as well. I'm over there with my board games instead. So I need to be able to look at it and see if it feels like it's going to be a good fit for the requirements of the paper. I'm not particularly concerned about what specific issues the person is having or what the genre is. I just want to get a sense that there's going to be realistic problems. And again, I said in general, horror doesn't, slasher films typically don't work, but there might be some that are more in the psychological thriller area where it is more about the people's reactions to things. The next thing we're going to do, I found, and if this link goes down at some point, I'll just find a different one. But I found some intake forms, and to pick whatever's most appropriate, adult, child, or couples, and download it and complete it pretty thoroughly. I mean, not pretty thoroughly, thoroughly from the perspective of your character. Use wikis or other, again, anything that can help you fill out. It's fine to use fan theories to fill in background information. Make up what you can't figure out. And so I give the example in Encanto. I don't know why that didn't stay italicized. The Madrigal's religion is not explicitly discussed, but they are from Colombia, and I can say, well, people from Colombia are probably most likely going to be Catholic. They talk about, and religion is probably pretty important to them because they talk a lot about this miracle and about gratitude. I also know that candles are often important within religious traditions, within Catholic religious traditions. So I'm going to say that they're even though nothing says they're Catholic, I'm going to say they're Catholic and that's very important to them. And I might even try to link, I might link family events to things like being confirmed within the Catholic Church, kind of linking that with getting their gift from the house. And then there's your final paper is worth 20% of your final grade. So there's a few kind of build-up assignments, and then your actual final paper. I'm looking for a 1 to 2 page summary of the character's history and presenting problem, written in a nice professional objective voice, like you would a client. And then I want you to pick at least 2 theories from class and talk about how each of those theories might explain or describe that character's personality development and presenting concern. So that's 1 to 2 pages for each of those. And then at for each one, you'll discuss treatment. So 2 to 3 paragraphs perhaps total about treatment options. So overall, it'll probably be somewhere in the range of 5 to 7 double-spaced pages. I'm usually not really particular about page counts. I care more about whether you get all the information in there. You'll also have a title page, an abstract, and a reference page that includes the textbook and any other sources. Again, we'll talk in class about how to cite websites or other fan theories that you get information from. The other major thing, so if we look at our points, we've got 250 points coming from your character analysis paper, 350 points coming from your literature review paper, and 400 points coming from quizzes. I tried to keep the course pretty simple. So you'll have a 7 to 10 page APA-style literature review with at least 8 peer-reviewed journal articles. They don't all have to be empirical. Let's come over here and look. So there's a couple plagiarism assignments just to get started to make sure that you understand the basics of what's expected. And let me check that these have, yeah, I think these have the correct point values. I think I need to add in the reference list assignment. So topic and relevance, just telling me what you want to talk about, how it relates to the course, and at least 2 peer-reviewed journal articles that fit with your topic and make it clear how it relates to counseling psychology. So let's say you want to write about meditation. That might work, it might not. If you just talk about meditation and how it can improve lives, not really a counseling psychology topic. But if you talk about how meditation can be used with different approaches, how it has led to improvements in work with clients, then it could be a counseling psych paper. So it's not just what you want to write on, but how you portray it within counseling psychology. Similarly, you want to write about depression. That's fine if you're writing about how different clients might present, how to diagnose it, how to treat it, anything, which approaches seem to be best. Anything like that would be fine. But a more general approach, just a more general description of depression would not work. So you're also, again, I don't have it in there yet, but I will. There's a reference list. I tried to add in more small points along the way so that it's not, your grade isn't just writing on a couple big high stakes papers at the end. So you're going to submit your reference list and PDFs of all your articles. So you're required to have at least 8 peer-reviewed journal articles. If you also have books or book chapters, make sure that you link me to things that let me see, kind of decide whether they're scholarly and appropriate. Article notes will just be for your peer-reviewed articles. There's a template to use for article notes. This is the simpler version. So if you have writing in psych, you'll know there's kind of a more detailed empirical one. This one, even if it's empirical, you can use this more simple. Just pull out 2 main ideas from the article and think about how this would work in a professional setting and what the main purpose is. So it's sort of like an annotated bibliography, but it's meant to be a little more focused on pulling out the main idea and getting some things that you might be able to copy and paste directly into your paper. If you haven't had writing in psych yet, there's lots and lots and lots of videos that can help you with that. So the article notes are divided up into 2 sets. One has 2 articles, the other has 6 articles. And the idea is that you can get help and maybe a little feedback on the first set before you do the second set. You'll do an outline. I might update the template a little bit as we go. It's a somewhat simple template. At least if you're familiar with writing in psych, it's a little simpler. And then the final paper itself is worth 150 points. Now when I see some of this is a little outdated. Let's see. If you look at the final paper, there's a rubric that will tell you more directly what all goes, how I'm grading you. And again, I might update this a little bit because I have been streamlining some things. It might be good enough though. All right. Online writing resources. Oh, that's a little old. I'll make sure that I link to somewhere to the entire, oh, here it is, the Google Drive folder. This has, again, if you, oh, that's the template. That's not what I wanted. I'll make sure that I link to the Writing Insight Google Drive folder and the YouTube page just to give you all those resources. Quizzes. These will show up about a week before the due date. If I get them out late, I'll extend the due date. Usually I try to have them release after we've talked about whatever the topic is, whatever the chapters are in class. Sometimes they're going to be more multiple choice. You can see the last time I ran it, this was when the pandemic was first breaking. I ended up doing just kind of open essay, shorter essay questions for the last two quizzes. I'll see if I keep that or if I add more, a more typical variety of multiple choice, true, false, and maybe one short essay. Let's see. So those are the assignments for the class. Course schedule. I keep this in a separate document just so it's a little easier. You can bookmark it and save it. I link to it separately. So here you can get to the syllabus, the schedule, our Google Drive folder, and you can make an appointment with me. And then the assignments are organized pretty clearly there too. You can also look in the calendar. I might not have, these assignments are for a different class. Don't panic. I may still need to update some of the due dates in here. It's a little before the semester when I'm making this, so I'm still finalizing some things, but you can get to the schedule, which I've already opened. And there's just reminders of the late policy. So you can see readings. Does this still link to the, yeah, that looks like the right version of the syllabus. So this will tell you, an important thing is it will clearly say if we have no class. It will also say, and I might make this a little more obvious, it has at least some days marked that we're planning to be virtual. I might add some more, particularly after breaks, or in one case right before break we are virtual, or there are also some flexible days for paperwork. An important thing for your paper, your lit review paper, when you submit things to me, I won't be editing them or making corrections on them. And there's not as much dedicated time for feedback as there is in writing in psych if you've had me for that. But instead, I'll give you some rubric feedback and kind of let you know how you're doing. So kind of just let you know if you're on the right track or not. But it also is meant to be spaced out to make sure that you have time to reach out to me. And there are some times where I have, like I have this movie analysis paperwork day. And so we'll meet virtually, we'll answer questions, and then if there's time, I will, I can create a breakout room where I can meet with individuals. Let's see. So here is also, I've got, so these are some YouTube videos, I might update those. A lot of the videos that I link to are through the library. So you'll have to log in, and it's through Alexander Street or something like that. Yeah, Alexander Street. They're pretty cool. There's transcripts, so if you would rather read through parts of it, and you can kind of skip to different places, which is really nice. You can also watch them at different speeds. No, that's not. I think there's a way to watch them at different speeds. I can't figure it out right this moment. I know on YouTube you can adjust the speed and it's lovely. Maybe you can't. I really like watching with subtitles on. It makes it easier for my brain to process what's happening and to stay closer. I really thought you could adjust speed. Maybe you can't. But if you're tight on time, the transcript can really help you pull out the most important parts. And we mix in talking about, so we have our book. We also mix in, I have some lectures that I give that are separate, and we do some other readings. Academic policies, academic integrity. The quizzes are to be taken individually. They are meant to be open book, so I take them with the assumption that you will have your book and your notes out. If you certainly are not supposed to copy from any book or website or from another person. If there is any sort of open-ended question or essay. And on the paper, it's really important that you understand plagiarism. I give you a couple plagiarism assignments at the beginning of the class. If any of it is fuzzy or you're not sure why the correct answer is the correct answer, please follow up with me. I would really, really like to not have any plagiarism reports this semester. I have been having a lot of them since the pandemic started, which I think is for a lot of reasons, and I would really like to be done. Also, don't help anybody else cheat. That's a pretty big problem too. If you have a disability, please communicate that with me as early as possible. I can only make accommodations, so I can only make changes to the course for people with documented disabilities. If you have a diagnosis or if you've had accommodations in the past or suspect you have a disability but you don't have active accommodations, you can still talk with me and we can brainstorm ways for you to kind of cope with the course. Or I can also think about whether there are ways I can make the course more accessible for everyone. I try really hard to build as much accessibility in from the beginning. The quizzes are likely going to be timed, so that is one thing that people with accommodations typically will get extra time. The timing is meant to put just a bit of pressure on you being organized when you sit down. So it's not usually meant to be really a cram quiz, but it's so that you can't just take all weekend to do it. You can't just, open the book after you open the quiz. The goal is that you've read, you have pulled out the main ideas, you're familiar with things before you sit down. Recording, in particular in this course, because there's not a direct lecture, recording can get a little trickier. But of course, if you have an accommodation that allows you to record, we will talk more about that. And then, that's the other reason I have this as a separate document, is that I wanted to do it long ways, landscape, and Google Docs, at least when I made this. I don't know if it'll do it now, but it typically doesn't play nice if you've got a little bit of both. I think that's it for now. If you have any questions, feel free to email me if something seems funky. Like I said, small changes are to be expected. I tweak things quite a bit. But if something seems wildly wrong or contradictory, please let me know. Sometimes there's just mistakes. Take good care, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.